Hey, good morning, everybody. Today is Friday. Welcome to the Energy Newsbeat podcast. My name is Stu Turley, President and CEO of the Sandstone Group, and I've got an exciting interview for you today. We've got Irina Slav, as she is in Bulgaria, and we were just kind of teasing. I am a huge fan. In fact, my wife has laughed about having all of her articles on the screen and everything else. And Irina is a industry expert extraordinaire from Bulgaria, and she is an authoress and a author for the oilprice.com and also Irina Slav on energy on Substack. We'll have all the information in the show notes so you can subscribe to everything she does. Welcome, Irina. We are so glad to have you here.
Hi, it's great to be here, Stu. It's a pleasure.
How's the weather? First, Bulgaria. How are you doing in there in the weather? How's everything going?
It's been good. It's sunny, though it's cold, but we've been doing fine.
Oh, well, good. I'm out here in Oklahoma, and I've got 3 inches of ice across everything, and I can't get out of my area here, so I'm trapped like a rat here. So,
You're not used to ice and snow?
No, and in fact, the drivers in Oklahoma are horrible on ice and snow, and so it's best to stay home. But for our listeners, we have 2 action-packed topics. Irina on February 8th wrote one of the best articles I've read on green hydrogen and the differences on that. And then the second topic we're going to have, don't count on OPEC to bring oil prices down. This was published on oilprice.com. So, Irina, excellent article. I learned that there's a nirvana of hydrogen, as I'm a hydrogen fan, but I did not know about some of the things that are in here. Everybody's touting hydrogen. There's green, there's blue, there's a rainbow of colors.
Oh yeah, it's a real rainbow. Yeah.
Could you let us know and let our listeners know what the rainbow is? You know, the green, blue.
Sure. I think they've been adding colors, but basically, yeah. The darker colors. Gray hydrogen is produced from natural gas. Brown hydrogen comes from coal, gasification of coal. And the ultimate goal, green hydrogen, that's produced by electrolyzing water using wind or solar power. And I think yellow was the kind that uses nuclear power to produce hydrogen.
Wow, this is almost like having you almost need a chart, like, the red, yellow, anyway, we got to put a chart out there.
I know. Yeah.
And I love when people start throwing around the color scheme and they don't get it right. And it's easy to do on that. Now, in your article, you've been covering hydrogen for years, and you bring forward some of the good things about hydrogen and the bad things. What are your thoughts on the good things of hydrogen?
Well, it's abundant. It's relatively easy to produce in that it's straightforward. These are established processes. And it's very versatile with regard to uses. It could be used for lots of things, production of fertilizers. I see it's used. I'm not an expert. I'm not a chemist, so
right.
I can't speak technically. I see it's used in the treatment of metals.
Right.
And of course, it could be used as fuel for electricity production.
Very, very versatile, and especially with natural gas prices, if they go up, using it for fertilizer, helping natural gas take that away, because we've now got a food shortage facing the world because of natural gas shortages. So that would help. But in the battery aspect of it, batteries are really got some problems, and they got some technology ways to go, so everybody can have EV cars and all this other stuff. So that would be a great replacement for it as well. I mean,
yeah, fuel cell cars are great. They're clean and they get fueled much faster than battery electric vehicles.
And that, the whole goal is to have zero carbon output. Yay. The world needs carbon anyway for plants. So, but we're going to leave that discussion out of this, just to say, yay, we need to go to all of this. But the big thing that you brought up was water. Tell us about water. Man, I did not know of the 1-to-9 ratio. And then even down later in your article, you talk about it and it goes to 18 tons to 1 ton. Can you explain? I mean, if there's a problem with it, can you explain a little bit about your friend in the water?
It's not really a problem. It's a simple question of input and output.
Okay.
So to produce a lot of hydrogen, you need a lot of water to break it down into hydrogen and oxygen.
Right.
And some of it gets lost. It's not 100% input equals 100% output. And what to me is quite serious, an issue is the fact that you can't just use any water. It needs to be purified.
Right.
So you need additional technology.
You can't use
no.
Okay.
So yeah, that's why it's quite complex. You need, if we're talking about green hydrogen, this is what we're talking about. The way I see it, and the people I talked to when I was researching my first article on the problems with green hydrogen. Now you need to account for the location of your solar farm that will power the electrolyzer, and then you have to have water nearby.
Right. And that doesn't normally happen in big solar.
That limits the choice of locations, yes, for these installations.
You had one with Shell as an example in China that was a great example of where to put it in there, where the biggest electrolyzers in the world with a capacity of 20 megawatts in China's I'm from
I think.
Yeah, I can't pronounce anything, so people make
I'm not sure it's correct, but yeah.
Being from Texas and Oklahoma, I get laughed at a lot. So that one's going to be green because of because of wind, and it seemed like it had lots of water. So that's a great thing for hydro, is finding water.
Yeah, if you can find the right location, yes.
Now, commercially viable, water is expensive and a real problem around the world. So everybody running around doing the hydrogen happy dance is not going to be the end all solution. It's going to be a good solution. And Saudi Arabia has announced I like Saudi Arabia from the standpoint that they are taking advantage of their oil and gas, but yet they've announced some huge hydrogen plans for the future.
Absolutely, yeah.
That is good energy planning.
They're going in the right direction. Yes. They're taking advantage of oil demand, current oil demand, and they are planning to make good use of the oil money. Hopefully, things can always change, but I think they're going in the right direction. Yes, and developing their metals as well, metals and minerals. They have quite a bit of that too.
And I respect that. When you talk about an energy leader, there's others that are not energy leaders, and I cannot say that the United States is an energy leader. I will even talk about our pipelines and everything else on other podcasts, because the administration is killing pipelines, except when they want to kill the Nord Stream 2. So pipelines in the US are being killed, except they don't want the Nord Stream 2, but we'll leave that alone
they don't like pipelines. It's blatantly obvious. Yeah, they don't like pipelines.
And anyway, the raw materials with minerals and everything else, everybody wants to go to an EV car, but the minerals are a real oil problem. Do you see any, because everybody got an EV car or electrical vehicle car now. We don't have enough precious resources to do it. So hydrogen batteries could help fix that problem. Or are there still big amounts of rare earth minerals needed in order to do hydrogen?
Well, no, hydrogen can't help fix this problem because if we're talking about green hydrogen, it relies on renewable energy sources, on solar and wind. To build solar and wind installations, you need metals and minerals. And should I talk about prices of metals?
Yes, yes.
Well, this just in the past couple of days, of course, the latest price spike has to do with geopolitics, with Ukraine, but that's just like the last drop, because metals prices have been going up for months now. Yep. With all the forecasts about EVs and generation capacity from wind and solar, it's like forecasters are in a race who will make the bolder prediction of gigawatts upon gigawatts of wind and gigawatts upon gigawatts of solar and millions of EVs. All this needs copper, it needs steel, it needs aluminium, it needs nickel and lithium and cobalt and rare earths, of course. Incidentally, because of higher energy prices, including coal and gas, polysilicon, I just read today that polysilicon prices are at the highest since 2011.
Wow.
So yes, the myth about increasingly cheap solar and wind is being busted right now. Nobody seemed to have accounted for this. Everybody seemed to think that prices cannot go up. There will be enough of everything we need to make solar panels and wind turbines, but this is not the case.
We're in a no-win situation, it seems like.
We are, yeah.
And so the best path to get to carbon net zero is nuclear and natural gas. And then as technology evolves, roll to some of the others. Is that what I've read in some of your things, or what are your thoughts on that?
That's one possibility, yeah, but there is a lot of opposition to nuclear. And then we must remember, even if we leave aside the fear of an accident and radiation, even if we forget about this, nuclear is quite expensive up front. And that makes the energy not that cheap. Although I hear that a lot of research is being done in new kinds of reactors, modular reactors that are not as expensive. So there's that. So yeah, nuclear is, I think it's an indispensable part of the energy transition if we're really so set on becoming net zero emitting civilization in the next, what's it now? Not even 30 years.
Yep.
Gas would be also part of it. It has to be part of it.
Yep.
But of course, environmental organizations some of them would insist on carbon capture and storage, and others are against it because they say it's inefficient and expensive, and anyway the captured carbon is being used to produce more oil. So there's no making some people happy, really. So you can never make everybody happy. There will be always an opposition to this or that, including against solar farms.
Oh, yes. Now, in the United States, we're facing a huge problem with just gasoline at the pump. And gasoline at the pump, because our refineries are the cost for oil is going up. We're seeing some huge problems this summer when demand for gasoline comes up. So we're going to see the highest prices, in the United States, it was 2014 since we saw $100 oil. We're going to see some really, really high prices of gasoline. How is that in Europe with the energy problems in Europe? Are you going to in Bulgaria or any else?
Oh yeah. Prices are going up. In fact, they're almost as high as they were in 2014.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
and
how
they
much
will
is it?
keep going up.
How much
Uh,
per liter?
we pay per liter, yes, and it's 2.60 levs. So it's half that in euros. What is it? About 1.80 euros per
Okay.
liter.
Okay. You were very funny when you were doing that. It is Friday afternoon in Bulgaria. You have had a tough week because I've read a lot of your articles coming out this week, and you're doing some great math. So well done.
Thank you. It's really complex math. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, I mean, liters, euro, over.
Dividing by two. Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, dividing by. I can't do that. Anyway. So as we talk, the energy crisis affects everything. We talked about ammonia and fertilizer, natural gas, food increases. Seems like energy is the core of inflation coming around the corner.
Oh yes, yes.
And so in inflation, the poor get poorer and the rich get richer. So the one thing I did read, I think that yesterday that Biden said on the evil sanctions that he's going to do on Russia, he's leaving energy out. And so Russia's getting huge money from that. It's like sanctions are useless to Putin on that.
No, sanctions are useless, period. I mean, we've seen it with Iran, we've seen it with Venezuela. They don't exactly work. They don't effect regime change. They just make the regular people suffer. But we have the ironic aspect with the Russian sanctions that nobody dares to sanction Russia's oil and gas exports. Yes, so they sanctioned Nord Stream 2. It's not even operating. So what are you doing? You just
in Pakistan this week, Irina announced that the prime minister of Pakistan flew to Moscow, and he's looking to get a pipeline built, but he has to contract with a contractor that won't be sanctioned, and China is stepping forward for that because China's backing Russia. They don't care about sanctions. So all of a sudden you have everybody sidestepping sanctions. And like you just said, everybody's saying, whoa, what about all the oil from Iran? They've been selling to the Chinese. They've got the contract. They have sidestepped sanctions for years. They don't care about the nuclear deal. I mean, it's like, anyway.
It would be better for the people in Iran if they do ink a deal, so sanctions can get lifted, and maybe people would live a little bit better.
That is a good reason to lift the sanctions.
Yes, that's the big reason I don't really like sanctions as a way of teaching a country a lesson.
It's like the sanctions on Russia and China, or Russia from the U.S. Biden says he's going to sanction the rich billionaires. I looked up the billionaires, and one lost 42% of his wealth. One lost. One lost 27. Okay. You did some fabulous math just a minute ago. But being from Texas, I can do some math. If you're a billionaire and you lose 42% of your money, you're still pretty rich.
Yeah.
Anyway, so sanctions don't work.
No. No.
Okay. Now that we're solving all of the world's problems, and Irina, I appreciate your candor on this. What about OPEC? Because President Biden has been begging, rather in a U.S. problem, he has squashed the U.S. shale. and, drilling here is really tough. And he's begging OPEC for more supply. But OPEC is, in your article this morning, give us your opinion on OPEC coming to the rescue.
Well, it's not. I'm sorry, I'm being blunt, but I don't see any other way because things are so obvious. Right. As you said, Biden has been pleading with OPEC since last year, and when pleading didn't work, he tried insisting, but he didn't really have any leverage against OPEC to force them to do it. And I remember, like many others who are watching this industry and writing about it, initially I was confused. Why not go to your own oil industry and ask them to boost production? Now, of course, there's the question of different grades of oil, of course. Right. US refineries can work on light oil only. But leaving this aside, let's remember that Biden won the elections with a energy transition agenda and markedly anti-oil agenda. So from this perspective, it would have been unreasonable, illogical for him to suddenly embrace US oil. But it doesn't help that he reached out to OPEC. Yeah, he's still asking for oil. Yeah.
And COP26 and his infrastructure bill included natural gas and nuclear as now renewables. So boy, we got, yeah, I mean, we're talking hypocrisy going on here.
Yeah. There's a lot of hypocrisy.
And it's just not Biden. It is everybody has got hypocrisy. And I'm frustrated with hypocrisy. I love your candor. What you see with Irina is what you get. When are you running for president of the United States? But
I don't think this will be such a good idea.
Excuse me. You would need to be the Minister of Energy because you like whatever kind of energy, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but everything I read, you're not casting rocks at solar or energy or hydrogen. You're just
saying, I try not to.
Yeah. Use the best energy possible. Isn't that your slogan?
Yeah, but be practical about it and realistic about it rather than ideological about it.
Okay, if you run for office in Bulgaria, will your husband be all mad at you now, or is he just really frustrated with all the writing?
I wouldn't want to run for office. Now you don't just get to be a politician that easily now.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm not doing this to myself. No.
Well, I'll tell you, I just want to let you know that your opinions were so well received with our listeners and everything else. I just can't even begin to tell you how much I thank you for your time on a Friday afternoon in Bulgaria.
No, it's really my pleasure. I think we need to talk about these things. We need to think about them more rather than just swallow what we're being told by officials, ministers and others. Yeah, because I've been hearing the same things here, how we're now going to build a battery plant in Bulgaria to produce energy storage installations, and then we'll build a lot of wind and a lot of solar. We'll create thousands of jobs, of course, always with the jobs, and we'll have a much cleaner economy. It's all the usual so-called arguments, which are not exactly arguments, they are talking points,
right?
With very little substance behind them. So I think talking about renewable energy, the energy transition and all this is really critical at this point, in hopes that more people will start to question the dominant narrative and ask for real answers, what we would have to sacrifice and how much it will cost, really.
As a side note, I've got my research team working on a bunch of stuff on the increase of coal, and it appears that there's a strong relationship of countries that have a high renewable wind and solar, and that they've printed money, that there is a high relationship to high inflation rates. And so we're getting the correlation points into some statistics into a report. And so renewable and inflation rates go hand in hand is what we are seeing. So, I mean, the countries with less renewables, or excuse me, the right kind of renewables like hydro and geothermal, seem to have the lesser inflation rates. So we got to back that up with data before I just make a blanket statement on that.
That's very interesting, but it makes sense. Yeah.
But I don't want to just go out there and I like being ethical. I mean, you know, my wife keeps me ethical, but on that note, there is such a strong relationship between a trend between renewables and inflation. And then you can take it one step further, is the difference between the rich and the poor. So from a generic statement, the more you go renewables, the poorer your population goes. And I'm trying to back into that theory because that's really bad. So
well, let's take Germany. I'm sorry, I kind of veered off course. You wanted to talk about OPEC, but let's just talk about this and then go back to OPEC. Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So let's say Germany. Germany pays the most expensive electricity in Europe.
Yes.
But Germany is also the biggest European economy.
Right.
And it has a high standard of life. And then the pandemic came, the gas crunch came, and suddenly people are freaking out that they may not be able to pay their electricity bills.
Right.
So there is a lot in what you said, and also that what I think is very interesting, that with all these reports that wind and solar are getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, then why are Germans and other Europeans, I know we pay a surcharge for renewable energy.
Right.
So what's that about? They say it's about encouraging more renewables, but could we encourage them without a surcharge if they're so cheap?
But wouldn't tax credits help instead of the surcharge? Why don't you give the companies tax credits?
Maybe they do. I haven't researched this in depth. Maybe they do. But what I did research is what I need in order to put solar panels on the roof of my house.
Right.
First of all, they're very expensive, but they're supposed to pay off. Then I would need to wait about somewhere between a few months and a year to have it all certified and legalized with the authorities. And only then, they become operational. I didn't see anything about government incentives, but I'm sure they're there because we have incentives for electric cars. But I'm not sure if it's worth it unless the incentive is half the price of the installation. Right. Which was about, I think for our needs, it was about $10,000.
Excuse me?
It was about $10,000, I think.
So only the rich can afford solar.
Or people who could take a loan, a bank loan, and then they sell back to the grid and they get some income. But we, as far as I remember, for some reason we had to pay an annual fee for something. I didn't really understand what that was all about for using solar power. Yeah, it's needlessly complicated. Right. Not well explained. So I said, no, we're getting a backup generator and that's it. A diesel generator. Yeah.
As I can afford it, I'm going off the grid. I'm sorry. I've got a big hydro dam just down the road, so my electric is very cheap here in Oklahoma. But Dallas, even if we do sanction or have a problem, I think Putin the other day said he was going to attack the U.S. with cyber, and we have a real problem with cyber and power.
Sorry.
Isn't that fun? I'm sorry for going back that way, but it is just stupid. I'm sorry. I'm going off on a whole nother one. We had the Colonial Pipeline hack.
Yep. Yeah.
We have not done anything for security, so people are not insulated from war in the U.S. because if you cut it out, it'd be like a zombie apocalypse around here with no power.
That's a whole other can of worms. Yes. Cybersecurity is, yes, thanks for mentioning that has to be included in the energy transition equation too.
Right.
Because of all the electronics.
Yes.
And in electric cars and in the systems that connect solar farms to the grid and all this, it's really, it's a potential mess if we don't do it right.
No, in fact, I support a lot of websites and a lot of customers, and the hosting provider that I use got hacked. And so what happened was all of my websites got hacked by international people, and the hacking got into everybody's backups. So the hosting provider had backups for a long time. And I was frustrated because my clients were getting very frustrated because I kept putting backups back in, but they were infected. So this was in 6 months ago. So it was not, I'm a small guy, but boy, they even got the big hosting outfit and boy, that hosting outfit wanted to keep it quiet. So I mean,
they don't like to report these things. Yes.
No, and they finally sent me a note and said, please keep it quiet. And by the way, all of my clients got nailed, but they got it because they went to the big boys. They went to the big server houses in order to hack. So even the little businessman can be impacted by all this. So if you escalate that over to the Colonial Pipeline example last year, it caused gasoline prices to go through the roof.
Yeah, because people were stocking up in a frenzy. Yeah.
And so the zombie apocalypse does not need to happen in order to have the results of the zombie apocalypse.
Maybe that's better. We don't really need flesh-eating zombies on top of everything else.
No. But we do have politicians, and I'm going to put politicians in there with the zombies. So, I mean, they're in the same category as far as I have a very low opinion of politicians.
Yeah. So do I. Yeah.
Okay.
They're not really doing their jobs very well. So
no. Yeah. But Irina, thank you so much. This entertaining conversation, and I hope you have a fabulous weekend, and I hope to have you back again because my listeners love hearing you, and they hate my jokes. I'm just kidding. They love my jokes.
Of course they should.
They love your candor. So thank you very much for your.
I'm glad to hear it. It was a pleasure, Stu. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.